Catus Maximus here. So this actually isn't a Craftsman I-beam, this is an Easco. So I don't know if Easco is actually making these for Craftsman, it's possible. This is a later model. They did have some with this design that had a round knurled handle, and I kind of like that. So I reviewed one of Craftsman's best ratchets. It's the what I call the oil point ratchet. Really nice. Somebody commented that about the Eascos and finally ran into the standard length 3/8. So this is indeed the same as what I consider to be one of Craftsman's very best designs. It is precisely the same, even though this ratchet's a 3/8, but it's the same design language with the really heavy-duty reverse lever, the nice machine support. Really pretty darn nice ratchets. So if you like that Craftsman style, and those can actually go for quite a bit of money, just look up the Eascos, and they're really easy to tell in the photos by the distinctive switch or the little cutout and this ring here. Quite a few machined parts. I think there's like 14 individual parts, ball bearings, springs, snap rings, little machine components. Really, they are pretty nice ratchets. We will notice that the Easco is also a solid anvil, not a quick release. What's interesting is there's this little detent, or this little kind of depressed area here, almost indicating that there were quick release versions like for the Craftsmans, and they just switched out one side of the mold, and it kind of left a defect of where the hole might have been for the quick release. I think everything's pretty nice about this ratchet. The anvil is not perfectly tight, but it's certainly plenty more than good enough. The biggest disappointment is the real weak ball detent. I shouldn't be able to press that in so easily with my finger. It's definitely the worst part. The ball detent works well. It does have a lot of protrusion, so it seats pretty good. It just has a weak spring, so it holds on to the sockets, but I would prefer if it held on just a little bit tighter. 36 tooth and uses a batwing pawl design, kind of like a lot of old snap-on ratchets and Williams ratchets. So it's coarse, but it's definitely a very solid and reliable design. And let's go ahead and just take this one apart. These aren't too bad to take apart, and unlike most other ratchets, the retention and the components for the ratchet pawl itself and the switch is all independently held in via this snap ring, and then the ratchet anvil is held in together with this snap ring. So that's a little bit interesting, just the fact that it's kind of like two independent assemblies in the same ratchet. And so we just kind of want to center that a little bit. And how these snap rings work is they actually expand out and kind of fill the intermediate gap. So it provides a convolution there. It does provide a reasonable amount of sealing, and certainly being a non-quick release makes it even more sealed. So the worst part about these is just trying to get the pliers under the two tangs of the snap ring and getting it to pop up. That wasn't too bad. The snap ring just pops right off, so you have to be careful about that. We have our retention plate, even though this is a 3/8, this is still pretty thick. And then our 36 tooth anvil. Really pretty simple in there. This one's not too bad, just needs a little bit of cleaning and some lube. Real thick, coarse teeth on that. So, not the finest tooth ratchet, but certainly a reliable design, and that's what I like about it. Let's go ahead and pull out the switch here. Actually toss these things up there too. The switch, you just get right in the middle position or so. Sometimes it doesn't want to stay there, so you just once again grab those two clips and then just lift it out and slowly release them, and voila, there's our switch. Pull that off. The switch is a nice thick piece. Being mounted inset like that makes it pretty darn strong. This section right here is against the ratchet body, so if it hits or gets dropped on the ground, it's not floating. And since it's not floating, I mean, it's supported on the back, it's not going to want to break off. It'll certainly get dinged and dented, but it's not just going to want to snap off, plus the fact that it's actually a pretty thick cross-section. And then this whole section is just solid, sitting right on top of the ratchet pawl, so this can just get the tar beat out of it. And then there's the ratchet pawl itself. A nice thick pawl, and it is nicely supported. They did a round bore, so when the ratchet anvil is in there and it's pushing this pawl, it's trying to rotate it up, that it's a binding situation. And a lot of the force is being transferred through to the body of the ratchet rather than some kind of pin that's supporting the pawl itself, so it makes it an inherently strong design. And then there's just a little hole and a spring and a ball detent, which is the detent for the reversing. They actually drill. That hole is indeed at a slight angle. People have asked me how they get a straight hole in there. And the answer is it's not straight. They just take a very oblique angle and drill through to make that little hole. And this inset recess switch design with that snap ring that fills the gap actually makes the switch itself have a reasonable amount of sealing as well. So let me clean this up for a second and get it back together. There we go, got it all cleaned up. It's so nice once you clean and use an oil to lube these ratchets. Works super well. Generally speaking, if you have no idea about a ratchet, if you ratchet it and the pawl moves each time it clicks, that indicates what would be known as a direct drive, or like this Batwing's pawl style, where it's not floating, say, on more modern high tooth count ratchets, such as this icon here. In my experience, this design really is pretty proven. Kind of like the New Britain roundhead ratchet design is proven. These Batwing pawl style that Williams and Snap-on and many Craftsman, Easco have used really are pretty reliable. So if you do like those Craftsman's like I showed earlier, you may come across an Easco. And if you just want sealed head versions, that's the same thing. If only this detent was just a little bit stronger. But one of the things I still like, and I have to say it again, is this switch. It's just so robust. It seems to be so forgotten on ratchets. What I mean is, like, this is the expensive Icon flex head Harbor Freight selling. And you can see what happens. If I drop this, maybe I'm working on gravel or just out in the driveway where it's not perfectly even, there's like little lumps where little rocks protrude. If it drops, say from the bed of a pickup, and it hits that, that's going to snap off. There's just no question. That's cast zinc, and it's just a little cross section. It's floating way above the surface of the ratchet, so if something hits right there, I mean, I could probably just beat on this with this ratchet a few times and get that to break, and it's a real disappointment. It's one of the things that actually harms the reliability of ratchets. And that's why I like this design so much, is this switch is about as tough as you can get. I mean, this thing could just be hammered all day long right on the switch itself, and you're not going to have any problems. Having a reliable mechanism in there and an interesting design with these snap rings that actually keeps it reasonably or pretty well sealed, these Eascos will be a reliable ratchet. I have no doubt about that. Anyway, just wanted to give my take on these. Although, now that I've seen that they had older versions with round knurled handles, but with this style of engineering and machining on the head, I'm definitely going to be on the hunt for those. Anyway, really appreciate everybody who's been watching and subscribing. And if you haven't subscribed, please do. Until next time, Catus Maximus out.